Hello, you dummies. The Good Place is starring Ted Danson and Kristen Bell. Ted Danson plays Michael, who's we think is a kind of guardian of the afterlife, and Kristen Bell plays Eleanor Shellstrop, who we learn a lot about as we go on because she's our main character. Eleanor Shellstrop wakes up in this room and her eyes open and it says, "Welcome, everything is fine." And then Michael, Ted Danson's character, comes out and says, "Eleanor, come on in. You, Eleanor Shellstrop, are dead." She asks, like, "Okay, am I in, or, like, is this hell or heaven?" And he says, "There's a bad place and there's a good place. You're in the good place. You're okay, Eleanor." The good place is this fantastical neighborhood where there's breathtaking kind of Willy Wonka-esque visuals, and there's frozen yogurt stands all over the neighborhood. And the other main character we meet right at the beginning is Eleanor's and soulmate, played by William Jackson Harper. His name is Chidi Anagonye, and he was a philosophy professor of ethics. And Eleanor and Chidi are soulmates because in this world, soulmates are real. Your goodness is calculated by your total points you accumulate on Earth throughout every good act. And since Eleanor was a death row lawyer who got innocent people off of death row, she is over the top. She is a fantastic person. But of course, we find out that this was all a lie, that Eleanor was actually a trash bag, as she calls herself, from Arizona. She sold fake medicine to old people for a living over the phone, and she's actually kind of a rotten person. Chidi, who gets a stomachache whenever there's a bit of an ethical issue, is horrified, and now Chidi has to realize that he has to save Eleanor's soul, because if Michael finds out that she's a mistake, she is going to be doomed for all eternity to spend her life in the bad place. And Chidi, being an ethics teacher, will teach her to be a better person so she can earn her place in the good place. And that's the good place. This may be a sitcom, but it's one of the best shows I've ever seen. This is a very visually inventive show. First episode, you get shrimp flying through the air. You get a giant ladybug. You get full-on philosophy lectures in this show. This show is intellectually interesting and yet also has jokes about Eleanor's vibrator. And at no point is it pretentious. At no point is it dull. At no point, do you feel like you're being preached to about morality, even though this show is preaching about morality? Think about that. It's a show that is preaching and yet it doesn't feel preachy. That's incredible. The writing is top notch. The characters could be sort of stock archetypes of themselves, but they genuinely grow and develop. And yes, what a more mediocre version of this show could have done is what happens. Minor spoilers, but you kind of figured this would happen in the sense that Eleanor does learn how to be a better person from Chidi. His teaching works. They become friends. There's even some romance, but it's the way it happens that's what makes this show so exceptional. And everything around it, the world building, the visuals, the complexity of just how it sort of pokes holes in its own premise, in its own idea of like a point total being how you determine what is good and whether people should. How do we determine what makes a good person? Are we capable of change? Can we be good in an increasingly complex and morally complicated world? Again, these are really interesting questions. This show dives headfirst into them, and yet it's weird, it's funny, it's quirky. At no point do you feel like that it's trying to tell you what the right thing to be good is. The show feels like it's figuring that out on its own. And honestly, everyone's acting is fantastic, the writing is fantastic, but again, the inventiveness of this show and how well it's plotted really can't be undersold here. There is something that happens at one point in the show. There's an evil laugh that goes alongside it. You know what I'm talking about? It's probably one of the most memorable moments in television history. In any show, this is absolutely one of the best I don't even want to say what kind of moment it is. I think you'll know it if you've seen the show. It's one of the best moments, most memorable moments in any show ever. After a moment like that, a show could run out of steam or struggle to top itself. This show does not. It builds on itself. It reinvents itself. It destroys its own premise every season, and yet it, not in a way that makes it seem like it's trying too hard. Everything just feels effortless here. And it builds to honestly one of the best series finales in any television show. It's bittersweet, it's sad, it's funny, it's poignant. I sound like I'm going over the top here with how much I love this show. This show genuinely is all of those things. There's not a whole lot to critique here. And Janet, Darcy Carden's character, is somehow a standout. If I have to pick my favorite character, she is it. I'm going to try to do the thing. I can't do it. Bottom line, this is one of the this is a funny, silly show, but in terms of quality of writing, quality of plotting, this is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Thank you so much for listening to my Good Place review. Subscribe if you want more. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.